Hey, what up YouTube? Today on my RC channel, we're going to install a front 3-link kit in this RC4 drive Trail Finder 2. This is the 3-link kit from RC4 drive, so I didn't really anticipate any problems installing it. Here I'm just opening this package. Everything is packaged nice and neatly. Don't forget to keep yourself organized, get yourself some trays to dump everything into. To begin this installation, you have to first remove all of the leaf spring equipment off of the front of your truck. Since I'm going to be switching over to coilover shocks, I have to remove the shocks as well. First, I removed the screws out of the leaf springs, disconnecting the leaf springs from the chassis so that I could remove the whole front suspension assembly as one unit. And then I removed the leaf springs from the axles. Rub-a-dub-dub, time to get rid of the crud. And I clean this axle while I have it out so that it's nice and easy to reach everything. Then you have to remove the transmission to get it out of the way, just to be able to remove the brackets that hold the leaf spring to the chassis. Once you have the front end of this truck stripped, you can actually start assembling the brackets onto the axle that will hold the links in place. Here's that bracket going on there. The countersunk screw goes in the front, and then the crossbar, and then there's a panhead screw that holds that crossbar on. Make sure that you put the boss towards the back so that your upper link will fit to that. And the panhard bar mount goes on the driver's side of the axle. Then it's on to assembling the rods. You start by putting set screws into the rod ends and then threading the completed rod end assemblies into the actual suspension links. The next step is to attach the suspension links to the chassis brackets with the provided M3 hardware. Don't forget your Loctite, otherwise this thing will fall apart on the trail. I did have to remove the screws out of the cross member in order to slide it out of the way so the chassis brackets would actually fit. Plus I had used stainless steel hardware which had a slightly bigger head on the screw than the steel screw, so I did have to switch those front ones back to regular steel screws so that it would actually clear the bracket. The link mount brackets fit into machined pockets into the chassis, and the holes are already there and line up quite nice. Once you have the chassis brackets in place, you can put the screws back into the cross member and then attach the panhard bar mount onto the chassis. And then it's time to start reassembling the truck, starting with reinstalling the transmission. Then install the links to the axle brackets, insert the drive shaft, and then install the lower links and the panhard bar. Now the panhard bar, it said to mount it forward of the panhard mount bracket on the chassis, which I did, but then found out later on that that will actually cause interference with the shock, so I had to install it on the back side of the panhard bar mount, so keep that in mind when you're putting this together. The coilovers that I chose to go with were these Rock Krawler units from RC4WD. They're RRD emulsion scale dual spring shocks at 90 millimeters long. I took the caps off and I filled them with low C 50 weight oil before I installed them onto the truck. They install right into place of the old shocks on this truck. However, I did actually have to shim them out further from the chassis because the articulation of this truck caused the shock to interfere with the chassis. And that's pretty much it to the installation of the 3-link kit, and it's just time to reassemble the truck. The kit doesn't take up any more space than any of the old suspension components, so I didn't actually even have to rerun any wires or anything. Everything just went right back together the way it came apart. Here I'm just kind of giving it a little test to make sure there's no interference. The tire does actually rub on that lower link a little bit, so in the future I'm going to move those lower links to the inboard position and switch over to either a slightly shorter rod end or maybe even one of those axial bent rods. Make sure that if you find this video useful, you give it a thumbs up, a like, leave a comment, and if you haven't subscribed, now is a great time to go ahead and subscribe. Because when I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away a Tamiya TC01 kit. You can't be eligible for that unless you subscribe. And leave a comment saying subscribe with your Facebook or Instagram name so I will be able to get a hold of you. Alright, with the installation complete, I'm going to leave you with just some video to see how this truck actually works with this 3-link setup in the front.